Hi guys, my name is Desi Kadra and welcome to my podcast Bridging the Realm. Today I'll be doing a live stream special with a very special person, and as many of you know, this month I've been focusing a lot on the theme of life after death following the launch of my fundraiser campaign for a documentary I'm working on called Beyond the Veil. Beyond the Veil explores life after death and presents us with an alternative view on death and how we can better heal from our grief of losing loved ones. This is a topic that I've explored for the last few years, and I find it's just such an important topic for everyone to be able to understand and to kind of open up to different ideas of what of death and really life after death. In my own life, I've been able to do a lot of healing from losing a loved one and just delving into the spiritual side of life after death and learning about how consciousness can exist outside of the brain, which is now scientifically proven as well. So this month I've been interviewing people mediums and psychics who actually deal with this work for a living, and I find it absolutely fascinating to speak to each and every one of them because they all have something really important to share with us that I think many of us will have something to learn from. So today I will present to you Hannah Velten, also known as a Death Queen. And I recently met Hannah and her work called Raise. It's an organization called Raise where she helps people who are grieving by reconnecting them with their loved ones. Her work was really astonished me because it's something I've never seen anyone else do in such a way, and I can't wait to get her to share what she's actually doing with you guys. So just to tell you a little bit more about her, Hannah for 20 years she is a published journalist and an author, non-fiction author, and in 2003 her brother Christian Velten went missing in Africa whilst on a solo expedition retracing the footsteps of the 18th century explorer Mungo Park. And it was only in 2018, after 3 years of intensive spiritual development, that Hannah was able to find him in spirit after all physical searches had failed. So Hannah and Christian have since retraced his final few moments in Africa via trance mediumship on live Facebook films, which you can find on Hannah's page, Hannah, a.k.a. Death Queen. And since then, she's been posting about her development of her communication with Christian, with her brother Christian, who is now in spirit. I'm sure you can all see just how profound this is. And yes, I think this will be definitely a conversation to remember. So I'm really happy to welcome Hannah to the conversation. So Hannah, thank you so much for being with us.
Hi, that's a big pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I know you've recently started to do sessions with people who are actually interested in having, speaking to a medium and connecting with their loved ones. And I know you had one today, which I just watched, which was really fascinating. How was that today? How did it go?
It was great, actually. It was the first one I'd done with a volunteer. And I'm basically doing these, I'm going to hopefully do them once a week. And it's really just to introduce people to what I do and to show that it's not frightening and to show that I'm a normal person and to show the healing that's available when grief is really stuck. I mean, the lady I had today, Claire, was amazing. She suddenly lost her father last year, and it's coming up to the anniversary, and she had so much anger and grief and pain still there, but if you watch the film, her father came through and really helped her, sort of pinpointed the exact point where they'd had a difficult relationship in life, and actually healing that relationship through energy work is all I can say it is. It then passes down to her, and hopefully now she will be able to start healing and opening up a proper dialogue and relationship with her father, who is still there. He's still there wanting to influence life and to be able to help her and support her. And he kind of gave her, she described it as a mojo, you know, when you suddenly lose somebody, the love just kind of gets stuck, and it's like the heaviness and you know, just it's like the energy just stagnates. And a lot of what I do is about helping people release this stagnating energy and love and help them move forward, and also to reconnect, have a really clear connection with their loved one who's in spirit. So yeah, it was a good session.
Yeah, no, that's really, really amazing. And it's really interesting, even though I've been kind of doing this and learning about the psychic mediumship side, it's still really interesting to see it from sort of a third person point of view, and see how the interaction goes, and, you know, how you're picking up on things and feeling everything. It's really, really fascinating to watch. Yeah. So I know you just before the interview, you mentioned to me that Christian is actually with us.
He is, yeah, he is.
It's
funny, he comes and goes, and obviously I've been really busy in the last week or so helping other people, and he's just kind of like coming back in, like he's here, and he's like really excited to actually do something with me for a change, because he's been pushed out of the limelight a bit. So he's actually back, and this is going to be quite a fun thing. He's a big character. He always was, and he you know, he still is. So
yeah, well, the energy definitely feels quite exciting, so I can yeah. Well, just to go back to the beginning, can you just talk me through the journey of how everything happened and how exactly you got into the psychic mediumship? Because you mentioned from before in some of your previous interviews that you didn't believe in any of this, and you kind of...
No, so I mean, I'll give you the short version, because this is a long old process of like 3 or 4 years worth. But essentially, Christian went missing in 2003. He went missing without a trace. I mean, we tried every which way. We had searches. We had, you know, he just literally disappeared off the face of the earth. We never found a body. We never found. He was traced to Bamako in Mali, and following, you know, from investigators and the police, and then he just seemed to sort of disappear. And for, it must be 11 or 12 years, effectively, we lived as a family. I became you know, without my brother, I was the only child. We had a, you know, a really difficult time rejigging the relationships in the family. You know, it's you suddenly become an only child when you lose a sibling. But we had this limbo. We didn't know if he was alive or if he was dead. We'd always hoped he was still alive, and but there was just no news. There was nothing. So it was just a terrible, terrible situation. And it kind of got to the point in. So then I got married. I had children. Just kind of tried to get on with life, and obviously all the difficult times are all the anniversaries and birthdays, and it kind of hits you. But a lot of the time I just kept it hidden. You know, I couldn't let it come out all the time, because it was so painful. But of course, that festering grief, as anyone will know who's lived with long-term grief, if it's not released, it and you don't look at it, it festers and comes out in other situations. You know, when you're tired, when you're angry, when you're in stress, it comes out as other behaviors. And then sort of we skip basically through to about 2015, and it was Christian's 40th birthday, and I'd actually been working as a writer in residence for a funeral company for a year. And it really made me think, my God, what are we going to do with Christian? You know, we haven't had a funeral, we haven't had any sort of celebration of his life. So I talked my parents into having, or our parents into having, a 40th birthday party for him with all his family and friends in Mum and Dad's garden, which everyone kind of went along with, and everyone bought you know, their stories of Christian, and it was like and photos, and it was a really happy day. But I'd had this, the first kind of thing that happened, I'd been driving back from the National Funeral Exhibition, which I'd been covering. And on the way home, I had this vision in my head of us all standing in a circle, holding hands. And Lenny Kravitz's song "Let Love Rule" was playing, and I'm getting chills now, because that was the first time I'd had a sort of image. And I came home and I said to Mum and Dad, we're going to do this, and they were like, oh, I'm not sure if that's really what we should be doing. And I said, we're doing it, and we did, and we all stood around in a circle, and it was, now I know we were kind of all calling Christian in. We were all kind of wanting him to connect and contact us and get home. But I think that really started off this whole sort of spiritual journey, kind of standing in that circle, concentrating on him. And yeah, then the next 3 years was effectively sort of things started to happen. I went on Radio 4, onto Saturday Live on the morning show, and we talked about Christian, and then somebody recognized his photograph that I posted up, and he was kind of connected to Kenya. Somebody had recognized him from Kenya, and the lady was from Kenya, and this whole search restarted again for him on social media. And when he'd first gone missing in 2003, we didn't have social media at all. Like a little bit of internet, but everything was done on fax back then, you know, that's how long ago it was. So it was almost like my opportunity to really start a search again for him. And it all just sort of spiraled from there. I was totally dragged towards Nairobi and Kenya, and in the end, I hit a brick wall on everything. I couldn't actually find him. Still couldn't find him. And actually, by that time, I'd actually started having, after the party, I'd started to have lucid dreams of him. So he would come to me, and I would go to him. I'd sort of fly to him, and he was always ill, and he was always lying on his side, ill and kind of in distress. But he would recognize me, and we would hug, and we would have tears, and it was like we were meeting. So as time went on, we connected more and more. We had more dreams, and we actually thought we were interacting telepathically, really strongly telepathically, because I still believed, and he still believed, he was alive. This is what is strange, and why people sort of wonder about the story. But I mean, he thought he was still alive, I thought he was still alive, and we thought we were just speaking telepathically. And that went on for a couple of years, really. And all the time I was learning new skills, I was doing lots of meditation, I was spending a lot of time in nature, and really following the moon and the seasons, and really now I know I was really sort of grounding myself and relearning how and remembering all the psychic and shamanic abilities that I have, it was just a really gradual process. Spirit was involved the whole time, but it got to the point where I actually because I still thought I was going to find Christian, and I still couldn't find him in the physical. And it got to the point where I was getting really ill. I was very stressed by it, and I felt a really big responsibility, because he was saying he was alive, and I just couldn't find him. And actually, in the end, I gave responsibility of finding him to God, because I said, I can't do this. You know, I really cannot find him. Something outside of me, more powerful, has to be able to find him. And actually, when I handed over responsibility to God, to source, universe, whatever, that's when kind of things really started to happen. And I was eventually told, I had a shamanic healing, actually, with a friend of mine, and she we got to the point where she said, does Christian really know where he is? You know, he's telling you what he thinks is true.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the moment where 16 years worth of, or 15 years worth of grief just hit me, and I was like, oh my God, he's dead. You know, it still gets me now. That's really unusual because it doesn't normally get me. But I think it was just that, you know, when you've had a hope for so long that somebody's still alive, and you've had anticipatory grief. I mean, I see it a lot, and it hurts. It really hurts, and it's something that you don't actually want to look at. I never wanted to believe that he was dead. And I think people have this as well when they're, you know, if you're waiting for somebody to die, you know, terminal illnesses and all this kind of thing, you don't want it to be happening, but it is, and it will. And you know, it's the realization of it. It's actually confronting grief, and a lot of the work I do now is all about getting people to that point where they do confront their grief, because you cannot heal a grief unless you really confront it. Are you all right?
Yeah.
It's like you know, I couldn't even begin to heal my grief about Christian until I'd accepted that he was dead. And he was actually the one to tell me that he was dead. By that time we'd learnt how to automatically write together, so I could hear his voice and I would write. So we were writing letters to each other effectively at that point. So
you could hear him pretty well by that point. Then you could, like...
yeah. I mean, we'd had been having the dreams, and that then progressed to kind of hearing him, and then learning how to write. And we wrote a lot of letters to each other. And yeah, by the time I'd learnt the truth, I was writing to him, you know, regularly. We'd learnt to do that. And it was, you know, looking back now, it was the right time for me, certainly, to know that he was dead, and that we were. So instead of telepathically communicating, we were, you know, I'd actually become we'd come on the same wavelength. I think our souls had sort of met.
Pretty much connected on a spiritual level at that point.
I mean, we had been totally all that time, since the party, since we'd sort of connected in that circle, and it had been actually drawing him in. But yeah, he didn't know he died. He was actually killed. He'd been drugged, and then he was put in the river Niger. So he never realized he'd actually died. So he was unconscious when he went into the water, which is why he was still thinking he was alive.
Wow. Yeah.
I have to point out at this point exactly that what happened to him was very rare. Okay, most spirits don't get earthbound. You know, the whole thing with you know, it's all looking back in hindsight. The whole of this whole episode has you know, it happened at the right time when I had the abilities and I was just ready to hear this truth. And it's just like all of this has been played out and so orchestrated, you know, and I've been gradually and very slowly and gently brought into this, what I'm doing now. And the purpose for Christian and I now is to help other people. You know, there's the whole purpose of him going missing, his death, and our coming together, and our relationship and our communication is all very much now to help other people. And it's taken me a long time to come out, I guess, to my beliefs and what I do, and certainly now is the time when I'm starting to show people, like on these live Facebooks that I'm doing now on my page. It's like to show people really what can be done.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you can't find the answers and you've got no way of, and you feel blocked in the physical of getting answers, of connecting with someone, of apologizing, of, you know, there is another alternative. There is a spiritual alternative, which, despite physical circumstances of loss, you can still communicate, you can still apologize, you can still have that relationship.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was a really long answer.
Oh, no, no, it was perfect. It was really interesting to hear the whole story and how it actually happened and how you got into the psychic mediumship as well. But
I
yeah,
left out a lot there, by the way, but that's just the short.
I'm sure there's a lot more to that. But that's, I mean, that's really beautiful that you guys were able to connect, even though you weren't quite, you know, spiritual in that sense. It's really amazing that you were still kind of, well, you were telepathically communicating, so he was visiting you in dreams. And I mean, I hear so many of these stories of, you know, how people see their loved ones, their deceased loved ones in dreams, and that's how normally we communicate with them, right? So I guess that's definitely one sign that they're
there's something actually quite interesting that if you have a dream about somebody and you sort of say to them, what you doing here, you're not supposed, you know, if you're the one that sort of blocks it, like, you can't be here, you can't be talking to me, that almost makes them go, oh, all right, and then they sort of disappear. So if you start having those dreams, hold on to them, you know, hold on to them, because these are really dreams. They are there. They're not a figment of your imagination. You know, and I've fought a lot. I mean, I've tested Christian and our relationship and our communication to destruction. You know, I wanted to test it and test it and test it, and I've got so much faith and trust in it now, because he's proved to me over and over again, in public, in private, that you know, this is him.
Yeah, because there's always that sense of doubt in your head, because you always think, oh, am I just imagining it? Because I know him so well, so I know how he would say things.
Absolutely. And obviously I kind of called off a whole search for my brother, you know, and got a lot of backlash from it. You know, I can't lie, there was a lot of not good stuff that came back, because of what I believed in and what I was saying. But now I've got to the point where it's so real now that I've got no doubts about it being Christian, and I know how much we're helping other people, and I know it's a good thing.
Yeah,
you know?
No, it definitely is. I mean, just from my own personal experiences, my own healing didn't start until I went to see a medium to communicate with my loved one, because anything else for me was just, it wasn't working. I mean, I never tried therapy. For me, it wasn't something that because for me it was just a little bit, I mean, I know it works for a lot of people, but I needed more. I needed to actually be able to communicate with my loved one, you know, and say so many things that I didn't get the chance to say when they were still alive. So I think that's what's really helpful, you know, the spiritual side of it, and something that therapy can never really measure up to, no matter how much you do of it.
And actually, the other thing you were saying about, you had so much to say, but actually the whole thing between Christian and I is massively a two-way conversation. He has, you know, he's apologized to me, he's explained everything. You know, we've retraced his steps. He wanted to show me exactly what had happened. So it's almost like they want to share the truth with you, not necessarily about their death, although this with Christian it was, but it's like other things about your relationship and other things about them that you didn't know. Because obviously, as family and friends see a person totally differently, you know, there's loads of sides to everybody. So Christian was, he's kind of given me his whole story. So I know him as his friends knew him, I know him as knew him, so it's like the whole person.
And I think you mentioned in one of your interviews that when we have this relationship with them and then spirit, it's almost like we're closer to them more than we were in real life when there was still.
Massively. Yeah, I mean, Christian was always he was always a traveler. Yeah, it's too much to go into now, but he was always on the move. He was always searching for his searching for his thing. And we didn't see each other regularly, and you know, he went to boarding school young, and we kind of missed each other all the time. So we have a yeah, he's laughing now. We have a much better relationship now, and he's, you know, he can be a better uncle to to his niece and nephew, who he never met, obviously, and he never met my husband. You know, he's missed out in the physical. He missed out on so much.
Yeah.
But now he's able to be part of it all. You know.
Still there, yeah.
And my children are growing up with Uncle Christian still having a really big influence in their lives. You know, they know all about him, and you know, as they get older, they'll have their own relationship with him. But he's looking after them. You know, I know he's looking after them, and yeah, it's
definitely. So it's almost like he's like a guardian, like an ancestral guardian. So
yeah. I mean, he's a big character, and he's, you know, he's looking after us all, I guess. And I have lots of guides around me as well. It's not, you know, Christian is that's our special relationship. But I have lots of guides. I mean, yeah, spirit is everywhere, and Christian is in contact. And this is the other thing, really, that I wanted to get across, is that Christian is in spirit with so many other spirits, obviously, and he's bringing spirits to me, and then people in the physical who belong to those spirits are coming to me. So it's like everyone's it's really they're being drawn to me. It's strange, and I can't really explain it apart from Christians with a lot of people, and he's kind of saying, you know, Hannah can do this. She can help. You can make that connection, and you know, that's really what I'm doing now, is trying to tell everybody that you know, loss is an illusion. They're still there. You just need to find the way to re-communicate with them,
just in a different way. So you've seen quite a few people now, and obviously you do sessions with people individually. Do you always find, like, you know, this is like their big aha moment, and is this something that they've been always like waiting for? Because, like, for example, with your interview earlier with Claire, you know, she said she's been to so many therapy sessions, and it's only this one session that she had with you, with like a, you know, a medium, is just finally like a light bulb moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that a medium, like calling myself a medium, there is a medium element to it, but it's like an energy. I don't know if it's like Reiki. I've never trained in Reiki. I mean, this is all just stuff that I have learnt how to do, and I can't really label it, but it's energy work as well. It's a really I mean, you'd have to watch the film to understand what I mean. It's difficult. I can't label it. I can't understand, you know, it's just happens. And it kind of really gets to the core of the problem, like the real root of where the love is stuck. You know, there's always a root cause, and a death of somebody's death really triggers an emotional response, and a lot of that pain and grief is actually related to something that's happened before. And it's a trigger, and I've come to learn that obviously Christian's death was a trigger for us to sort out our relationship. There was a lot of mistrust, there was anger, there was all this kind of garbage over the love. And it's all a lot of this has been about like looking at our relationship truthfully, understanding and forgiving. You know, there's a lot of understanding of why somebody did something, and it's just, there's a lot of exploring to do, and it's not easy, it's painful. But I can honestly say that it's the best thing that's happened, really, because we have been able to clear everything, and it's like a pure unconditional love. That's where you get to, where it's unconditional, and that's where the love really flows through and releases the grief, and you realize that you haven't lost them at all, and it's a real pure connection.
Yeah.
And that's really all I can say about that.
No, totally. And do you find that with most people that come to you, do you find that the loved ones who have passed away, they just want to apologize, or they want to say, sorry for the things that they've done, or
yeah, I mean, yeah, I actually I made a list. There's kind of 4 types of people that come to me. I don't get the people who just want a confirmation.
Yeah. Okay.
I get people who've had sudden loss, traumatic loss, suicides, that kind of thing. I get people who have missing people, or who have like totally unanswered questions, deaths in suspicious circumstances, and like real nitty-gritty things. And because I've been through what I've been through with Christian, we had missing, we had loads of unanswered questions, but we still got no body. His body's gone in the river, he's had a river burial, so that's it. There's nothing I can't change it, I can't do it. But obviously, bodies are like, they're just a shell. So it doesn't matter if you have a body or not, if that makes sense. For me, I have him. Doesn't matter what happened to his body. I know for other, I know you're all on a different level. If you're reacting to that, then there's a reason why you're reacting to that, and that's something to do with grief and what have you. But yeah, it's so I kind of, Christians bringing to me the like difficult cases, difficult loss, that because I've been able to help him, because I kind of brought him home from Africa. Again, that's a long story, and I've been able to retrace his steps with him and tell his story. So we've done a lot together, and I know I can do these things now. And he is bringing me people who are
of the same,
in a really gritty death.
Yeah.
I guess in a bad death, I guess, is maybe, rather than a good death where you just want to communicate and know they're still there. These are difficult.
Yeah.
And I can handle it.
No, yeah, definitely. You've been doing that so far, and you've been doing amazing. Do you think that's because he himself died in a circumstances that wasn't very
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, if I hadn't kept searching for him, and I got in contact with a psychic medium in 2015, and he told me that Christian was coming home. Okay, and actually, even before Christian went missing, just about 2 weeks before he actually left for Africa in 2003, I lived in Falmouth at the time. We had an art gallery down in Falmouth, and a lady who I now know was in a trance came into the gallery when I was on my own, and she actually told me not to. She said, "I've got a message for you," and I was like, "What? Oh, this is weird." And she said, "You don't need to worry about your brother, even though it might look like he's in trouble. It's not for you to worry about." I'm getting chills now, so that means yeah. And it's like, so even before he left, and I laughed and I said, "But he hasn't even left for Africa yet. He's going to be fine. He's always had the 9 lives, always in life. In his physical life, he was always getting into scrapes and trouble, and he was always getting himself out miraculously. But obviously this time it didn't work. But so even before he left, I was being told that he was okay, and not to worry about him. And in the end, he lost his life, his physical life, but he's still around, and he's still my brother. He is still Christian.
Yeah, wow, that's quite something, isn't it, to be told that before. Um,
Yeah, and I thought it was just a joke. I mean, I thought, what is this woman on? I thought she was just on drugs, just coming off the street, but then it's not. It was like, I know now, even before he'd gone, I was being shown this spiritual connection, this spiritual reassurance, I guess.
yeah.
So all that time I was being told, yeah, with this psychic medium, he was repeatedly and repeatedly telling me that Christian, I would find him, he would come home, it would all be fine. And of course that all happened,
Mm.
but not in the physical, you know. It was just this spiritual path which I've been led on all the time. And I'm very happy to have yeah, I mean, I don't like to think, actually, if I hadn't found this spiritual path, and if this hadn't been my healing journey, I don't know how I would have, I wouldn't have healed. How can you heal with a missing person, with no body, no news, vanished, nothing? How do you deal with that? You don't. Um, and yeah, I feel sad now. It's like the only way to do this is a spiritual path, to find healing and peace. I don't know how, because you try and get on with life, and you try and just keep going, but grief just sits, and it affects every part of your life, and the pain like hardens your heart. And you fight against it the whole time, you know, you're fighting and you're fighting against this grief and this pain, and you just, yeah, it's I know what it feels like, and I don't, you know, that's not a nice place to be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can completely, yeah, I completely get it. Grief is just, you know, I remember when I was looking online how to deal with grief when I first lost my mom, and it was all these, they had like these 7 steps, and I remember the last one was to accept. You know, you just have to accept what happened and just try and, you know, move on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a part of me that was kind of like, you expect me to move on from this, you know, you just want me to accept what happened and just move on like nothing's happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this thing of like, wow, like that's not possible, for one, to move on, because you can never, like, your life's completely destroyed in a way, you know, you have to build it back up, but it will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely this whole idea that we have in the Western society that we just have to kind of accept it, and that we're just not going to have any answers. If we had any before, too bad, you know, you missed your chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you know, just like you go along the path, and you just realize how other country, you know, when I had, actually, the last bit of grief I had, I mentioned not having Christian's body, and actually the last bit of grief that I had was that he wouldn't ever be I can always feel him around, but I would never have him physically in the passenger seat in my car. And it like really got me. That was the last thing that of this level of grief. And then I started to look at different cultures around the world and how they deal with death and the afterlife and communication. And that's when I found out the river burial, or they call it or there's an air burial. So I think it's an air burial, something like that, but it's effectively the body goes back to nature.
Yeah. Mm.
Which Christian, you know, Christian was a like totally, he did zoology at uni, he was a traveler, he was like,
You love that.
or, you know, that it was all that, nature was his thing as it is mine. And you know, he's gone back to nature, his body's gone back to nature, and brilliant. But the whole thing about the recycling and the whole rebirth and the whole afterlife, the Westerns, you know, oh yeah,
I know.
there's much better ways of looking at life and death and rebirth, and this whole, you know, energy doesn't stop, it just transfers into something else. And I think, you know, I don't know much about the sort of metaphysical explanations of it, but you know, energy just doesn't stop. And that's why grief is so difficult, because you're trying to, you've got this love which you feel you've been abandoned. What the hell do I do with this love, this energy? And it just stays in you, and it eats you up, you know. And it needs to be released again. It needs to be free. And I'm feeling peaceful. It's like, oh, what a relief. I can finally move this, give it to, you know, that realization that you haven't been abandoned. You know, you haven't lost. You've lost physically, but you haven't actually lost them. They're still there, and you can still rekindle a relationship and ask the questions. You can find out things, you know. I mean, it's yeah, it's like I've got to the point really where I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. You know, this is too important. It's changed my life completely, and I just now, you know, I was given the label of Death Queen quite recently, and it's taken me so long to stand up and go, yeah, I'm Death Queen, you know. But it's a label. You know, I've written a post about it, and actually Christian actually wrote it with me. It was like a letter, and I said, why are you calling me Death Queen? And then we wrote this letter, and it's effectively that I've been through all the grief. I know about death. I know about, you know, everything that's happened with Christian. You know, he's laughing now. He's like, it's like everything that I've been through gives me the right to be called, or for them to label me as Death Queen. And I just have to deal with it and do it and just get on with it. And yeah. And if people can find me who need my help, you know, being called Death Queen, it's a kind of, it's a big beacon, isn't it? So
you just have to own it. You just have to own it, you know. It's just some things. Yeah,
I do, because if I didn't, the whole thing with this journey is that if I tried to stop what was happening and go and do something else because it was too painful or it was too difficult or I didn't really want to go there, like life just it just didn't go well, you know. Life got really difficult, and then it was so, all right, okay, I'll take this opportunity, or I'll look at that sign and, oh yeah, okay, I'll go and do that. And really, if you flow with life and you don't resist these things, the more you resist it, the more it hurts. And the more you hit the brick walls. And once you open and you kind of accept a lot of it is just opening your mind to the possibility and looking out for the signs. I mean, this is what Raise is all about. You mentioned it earlier, this online grief community that we have. And that's basically sort of passing on the lessons and the experiences which Christian and I have had together. And it's so it's empowering people to be able to do this themselves. You know, you don't need to come to me to get to get the connection with your loved one. You know, the grief, the Raise is definitely about raising yourself up, getting yourself strong, which is a big, you know, you have to do that first before you make the connection. And then once you've got the connection, it's all about clearing the energy between you. So getting rid of all the anger, the mistrust, all of that. And then actually working together to go through your grief together. So you kind of walk back to the grief and understand it, and if there's any forgiveness and things. So it's almost like we're doing it as it's kind of at least a year's commitment, I guess, within Raise to be able to really to do what we've done, I guess. But yeah, so there's, you know, there's lots of ways that I help people. But yeah, no, it's enjoyable work, and I do love what we're doing now. You know, this whole spirit, they're all around me. It's like I stand as the person that people can see, but I've got a whole theatre they described it in the films that I did with Christian that are available on my website under the Losses and Illusion tab. It's like there's a whole theatre here of spirit and of people who've helped me. I don't do this alone. I've had so many people support me over the years. Like I've been sent all the radiators I've needed, you know, all the supportive people, all the people who've given me so much love and support and guidance. You know, I've been really lucky. And actually, if I think about it too much, I will, you know, I'll get emotional, because so many people have put so much love into Christian and I and our journey. And you know, a lot of this is actually to thank them, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking about this if I hadn't been supported all the way. You know, there's a lot of bravery and courage I've had to put in, but I've had a lot of help. You know, I've been sent all the right people to help me at the right time. And you know, it's taking the opportunities that you're given. Spirit is trying to help you all the time. Or that's one thing, you have to ask Spirit for their help. They don't come and help you. Yeah, they're laughing. It's like they can't come and help you. It's like almost like an ethical thing. They can't come and help you if you haven't asked for help. And when I said earlier about like giving it up to God, or finding Christian, giving it up to God, universe, source, whatever, like that was me allowing them to help. And that's when I started to get all the help. So whether it's God, whatever your beliefs are, I don't care whatever your beliefs are, but there's something bigger and more powerful than us little humans, you know. And the gateway is asking for help. And then it's like really looking for the signs, taking the opportunities when they present themselves, and just being brave, you know. Don't care what other people think. If I cared about what other people have thought about me and my journey, I wouldn't have got anywhere.
Totally. Yeah, no,
So,
there's a point at which you just have to just follow your intuition, you know, and just go with what feels right.
yeah, and just battle against. No, it's not a battle. It's just do what you feel, do what's really you, be your true self. You know, a lot of the stuff in Raise is actually about being your true self and getting unconditional love for yourself before you even start. Actually, a lot of this is just loving yourself. People don't love themselves. Yeah. And you have to love yourself first before you can love another person unconditionally. And you know, you have to there's a long process, there is, but if it's doable. And you know, Christian and we're here to help other people do the same.
I completely agree with what you said about people. I mean, ever since I've kind of gone into this spiritual journey and just trying to, you know, understand everything from that perspective, I am shocked at how people hate themselves. Like, they actually hate themselves. You know, I mean, I've gone into, you know, classes and retreats and stuff, but one of the main things that I found was that people totally hate themselves. Like, they think that they're horrible people because of, you know, past things that they've done or things that they've said. And it's just, that was one of the most shocking things I found. And then for those who do pass away, you know, they pass away with all these regrets of how horrible they are and how much they hate themselves and how they did all these bad things. And then, you know, they come back to speak to their loved ones just to apologize for how horrible they were. So there's this like cycle of just, I
mean, today in the session with Claire, it comes out in every time. It's like when you pass over, you have this it's like just being called, they all call it a life review. So they sit there or whatever they do and they review their life, and they realize, oh my God, that really hurt that person. Or you know, they understand what their actions have done. So it's like, if you've had a really difficult relationship with somebody in the physical life, they won't be that person in the spirit. It's like they'll know what they've done wrong and they want to come back and apologize. And actually, during the films, when we were retracing Christian's journey, the man who was responsible for Christian's death actually came, he's now passed over, And he actually came in, and you can see it all on the film, they're all live, and I forgave him.
Wow.
It got to the point where I couldn't not forgive him, because I understood that his pain that he felt for his part in Christian's death was also my chain. It was also holding me to Africa. It was holding me to the loss of Christian. And actually I know it sounds really quite flippant. I can hear myself going, oh yeah, I just forgave his murder. But honestly, I couldn't not. At that point, I understood I had to, and I really could. And actually, once I forgave Christian, I could see him reaching to this man, holding his hand and actually pulling him up to him. So like Christian also, once I had forgiven him, Christian was then able to take him up.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's very involved, and every loss has a totally different set of circumstances. Your relationship with the person, the way they died, whether somebody else was involved. There's so many different variables, but I've been through the shittiest of the shittiest, and come out the other side, and it is possible, I believe, and Christian believes, Spirit believes, that it's possible to heal from any loss. And it takes time, it takes courage, it takes bravery, but you can do it. There is a spiritual pathway, you can do it. And there's so much pain from unresolved grief, and it goes down the generations. I've learnt that. My children were starting to get affected by my grief. They're 8 and 10 now, but they were younger, and they were starting to get affected, and I could see it. And since my grief has been released, I can see it. It's like, we always say, it's like unicorn dust or fairy dust. It really does suddenly release, and it's and a lot of me retracing the steps with Christian, I didn't particularly, it was a frightening thing to do, and I did it all live on Facebook. I just trusted that it would be the right thing to do, and it was all about releasing particularly my son from ever having to go and find out what happened to his uncle. Christian went in the footsteps of Mungo Park, and I know Mungo Park's, a lot of the family have been in touch with me over the years, or us, and I know a lot of Mungo Park's relatives also tried to find out what happened to him, because Mungo disappeared, and it was all a suspicious circumstances that he died in. And I know the family, they wanted to find answers. They, that draw of finding out what happened to their ancestor, their relative. And I did not want my children and their next generations
to do this,
following off in some wild goose chase and getting them all selves killed or injured or whatever, trying to find out what happened to Uncle Christian. And bugger that, I was going to do this for them. And it's, all these chains got released. It was just incredible. I mean, all the films are on my available through my website, and it's all there. And I've had to be transparent the whole way through. I'm transparent. That's why I'm doing the live Facebooks as well. This is real, and if anybody reacts badly to it, it's not my problem. It's I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. I know for myself how this has healed me, and it's healing loads of other people, and it's stopped this grief affecting my family and future generations. That's all I can say.
Yeah, wow, that's really, really powerful. Really, I mean, out of all the ways that you can possibly deal with grief, that's probably the best way to do it. Wow, no, that's the idea that we also inherit things from our ancestors is also something that I've noticed as well by just learning about this field and how everything is, because everything is energy, like you said, and these emotions and everything that comes with us, you know, as a human being, this is kind of, I guess, when we die is really, well, we still hold on to it, but some of it is also passed on to our relatives, right? Because we're constantly around them or we're connected with them. So I guess that's,
yeah, well, a lot of it is it's like if you have a bad experience, if you feel abandoned at any point. I mean, I felt abandoned by Christian when he went to boarding school. You know, it wasn't his fault that he was sent to boarding school. It wasn't my parents' fault. It was just the way things were, you know. But that abandonment stayed with me, and it affected our relationship the whole way through. And you know, you learn when you've been abandoned, you do anything you can not to feel abandoned again. So you put a shell around yourself, you protect yourself, or, you know, or you turn to an addiction, you turn to a, you know, there's so many ways of denying and stopping yourself from ever feeling abandoned again. And that kind of passes down the generations, I feel. You know, that to me is, it's like that fear, it's like a fear passes on down the generations.
yeah.
That's what I feel. And I feel, you know, you were saying about people don't love themselves. I'm aware we're nearly out of time, but you know, you were saying about people don't love themselves, and this, you know, people are fearful all the time. They're fearful about spirit, they're fearful about what the, you know, the environment, I mean, the whole world is so fearful at the moment, and it feeds into, you know, I'm not good enough, you know, I don't look lovely enough, it's just, fear is such a destructive, and there's so much of it, and it's, a lot of this is just turning that fear, you know, losing Christian, it was all fear, based, grief is all fear based, and it's like turning that on its head and bringing the love in, bringing that love in again, bringing that connection. You know, fear has no place, it really doesn't. And it's, fear is a mental thing, it's a change, it's changing your thoughts from a fear into a love. So like, yeah, loving yourself, and you know, it's all very involved, but it's fear is such a dangerous thing.
It is.
And it's this whole I actually get very angry and upset looking at sites for people grieving. I know you mentioned that as well. It's like, it makes me so angry that, you know, it's like, I've lost them, how can I mend, you know, it just makes me angry just being what I've been through. And it's, I just want to tell everybody about my experiences, and that you haven't lost them. It's you know, it's an illusion. And yeah,
you're doing that with your work.
but that's, yeah, now I'm you know, I now know I'm on that path. That is what I want to do. I want to change. You know, Christian and I made a pact almost this time last year, actually in November last year, that we were going to work together to change how people in the whole wide world, you know, we're not playing small here, it's like the whole wide world, you know, seeing grief in a different way, and helping people heal grief.
Yeah,
you know, that's really what the whole purpose of his death has been. And we, you know, we've been through so much trauma in the last 16 years, we're not wasting it. So there you go, I've kind of thrown down the gauntlet. Thank you very much, Desi, for inviting me. And yeah, it's like we're on the pathway now. So
yeah, no, that's it's really incredible what you're doing, and I completely agree that it's time that people learn about this. It really is, because it's just, people's lives are completely crippled by that, by grief, just not knowing what happened to their loved ones. But I know you have to go, but I just wanted to quickly ask, from Christian's point of view, I know we haven't involved him as much, but how does he see everything now from a spirit perspective? Like, how is it working with you, and what does he see different now that he's on the other side?
Okay, I'll ask him. He's like, so I love working with you, Han. He calls me Han. Nobody else calls me Han apart from him. So he's like, he loves working with me, and he wishes. In fact, we've had like the last month has actually been quite difficult because I've been quite focused on getting the message out and being quite forceful about this. And I've had lots of tears come through from him because he so wants to be here in the physical with me, doing the work with me. But he knows obviously he can't be, and I know he can't be. So it's had a bit of a readjustment again. But I think he's just, what are you? Yeah, he's just like the message. He's got so many people with him, who want to connect and want to, like, they can see their loved ones in so much grief and pain, and it's just not necessary. It's like, it's really quite frustrating. So the more I can do this and the more people I can reach, the better. And he's learned. I mean, actually at the end of we did how many did we do? We did these retracing of Christian steps in January this year, and in the last film, he actually gave me 16 points of lessons that he'd learnt. So if anyone wants he's saying a banging 16 pointed list of how to live your life and how not to live your life, they're all transcribed. That you don't have to sit and watch all the films there, and actually they're very emotional, and they're watching a true crime program investigation happening. I get strangled, there's all sorts of stuff that goes on, but the last film has these 16 points, and he gave them to me and I just spoke them, and you can see them all on there, is the short answer to that.
Wow, that sounds so interesting. And maybe we can do another one based on that, and maybe bring Christian in more.
Yeah. I mean, he's always, he's kind of, he actually calls himself now my project manager. He kind of project manages, I think, kind of the spirit side, and then orchestrates people meeting people. It's and I look at someone and I think, yeah, there's some kind of recognition between people, and yeah, so any opportunity I can have to talk about this and to basically spread the good news, I guess it's
definitely
it's all being set up. It's all very well choreographed in spirit, and it's all happening. It's all the dominoes have been set up, and I'm just starting to flick them, and they're starting to fall. And this interview is the first of many, I hope so.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah, for sure. Wow, Hannah, thank you and Christian so much. The work that you're doing is so beautiful, and honestly, when I found you, I was like, wow, I've been waiting to meet someone like you for such a long time, because I thought, why is no one else talking about this, because people who do this work, they tend to kind of keep it underground and keep it,
I know,
because obviously I completely understand, because so many people think it's complete crazy, to be doing this, but it's not. And we're just the living proof of this, and how much healing can actually happen through this, and through opening up to this
absolutely,
this area and this field. And it's the truth. Science is proving it now with all the energy and quantum physics, so it's only a matter of time before people actually catch up to this knowledge.
Yeah. But I think it's I think a lot of this is the fear. My husband, I know he doesn't believe in any of this. And that keeps me grounded in a way. It keeps me grounded, but there's so much fear about, this is what I can see, and actually I don't want to open my mind to what I can't see, because it's frightening. But actually the stuff that you can't see is the brilliant stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is where all the love is, and it's not the fear. it's not the fear. Everything that you can't see is kind of like all the love, and it's knocking on the door all the time. But when we're in grief and we're in our little world and our little bubbles in our head, that's the most dangerous place to be, you know.
Yeah,
it's but that's me speaking after 16 years of experience. So
yeah, no, completely, I totally agree. And I think, and I just want to point out that one of the reasons why we're so scared of this, you know, field in this sort of outside of the physical dimension is because of the media and the films that are not, you know, portraying this in the correct way. So, you know, whenever I speak with people who are very skeptical about this stuff, I say, have you seen a ghost? You know, why are you so scared? They're like, no. And it's like, well, okay, so why are you so scared? You know, what's there to be scared about? It's only what we have in our heads based on what we've seen. So
yeah, I mean, if we were doing this chat on a, I don't know what reaction it's getting, but you know, on another platform,
yeah.
on a more public platform, shall we say, I mean, people would be going, what the hell is she talking about? But you know, I trust it so much, and I have faith in it so much, and I know, yeah, I just know. I think there's a turning tide, and I think people are becoming more open to it. You know, with the whole mindfulness, and I mean, even yoga and being in nature and stuff. You know, that's how my sort of spiritual awareness started to was really, the seed of it was being in nature, yoga, meditation, the three things. And that's kind of, you get inklings of something else going on here, you know, what's that, and then it obviously just grew from that. But yeah, I'm obviously an extreme case, but
yeah,
you know, it is you know, it is possible. It's almost like I'm being told, it's almost like I need to invite people to get in touch with me if they feel they have a grief that they really can't, you know, really can't see a way that they could ever get through. I'm being told it's like, come.
yeah.
You know?
Totally, yeah. So you're doing sessions now, aren't you, where you're inviting people to do
yeah, I mean, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be flooded
not gonna get like hundreds of
with doing free sessions for people, but you know, I think the live Facebook, it's like I'm asking for volunteers who don't mind doing this in public. You know, if you watch the one that's on my Facebook page at the moment, there's tears, it's emotional, it's harsh, it's but you know, Claire was willing to do that for me, bless her. And you know, if anyone's willing to put themselves out there, then yes, please do. If you've got a grief which is like a really difficult grief, I'm not looking for, you know,
just like a regular type.
yeah, that sounds rubbish, because you know, every grief is, when it's you, it's I know grief, I know grief, but you could go to any medium for that kind of work, but it seems as though I'm really specializing in the really nitty-gritty, really tough stuff.
Yeah.
And just because of my experience with Christian and what we've been through, I can kind of shoulder it, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
So we'll see what this interview brings up, and we'll see as time goes by what happens. But thank you very much for having me.
No,
and I wish you good luck with your film. And yeah, no, I think, you know, I think times are changing. I think people are, and you're willing to stand up and you know, be counted, and the people who in your film are willing to stand up in public as well. And it's, you know, once somebody stands up in public and says this and becomes a beacon for other people, you know, I'm hoping other people are going to come in now and feel like, oh, okay,
it's normal now.
yeah, like, you know, people used to think yoga was a bit odd, and people used to think vegans were a bit odd, but hey, look at it, it's you know, it's strength in numbers, and we're only bringing love. I mean, it's not, if we were bringing a fearful thing, a frightening thing, something which was going to mess people up even more, then fine, sling us all the mud at us, but you know, I'm not, and we're not. It's, you know, it's all love based. This is all love based. That's all we're bringing. Totally. Is love where it's stuck, or it's gone, or it's just, you know, where there's too much fear. It's been replaced by fear, and we kind of bring the love back.
Yeah, it's all about healing. Yeah, healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which again, like I've seen so many people just, you know, have this one session, or go to like one of those sessions where you have this one medium standing in the middle, and you have an audience, and then they'll just pick out a person and communicate with it, and you just see the people's, you know, you know that this day is changing their life, because they've realized that their loved one is still there.
You know what, I think that helps. This might be a bit controversial, but I'm going to say it because I'm being kind of told to say it. It's like that works very well in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
Where you don't really have outstanding issues, things. Yeah. The work, that's fine for a lot of people. You're like, oh, okay, they're okay, or they're, you know, if it's just a case of being reassured that you haven't been abandoned. But a lot of grief is actually related to something a lot deeper. You know, it's like grief is the death of a loved one is the trigger of something that's really deep rooted
and buried,
and it's actually getting to that root. You know, it's like cleaning the wound, really. It's like walking back to where it really started, where this real fear is.
Totally.
And then, yeah, because you have, there's so many answers that need, you know, it's these, you know, in the particular cases that seem to be coming to me, it's just being told that they're still around and they're alive in another realm just isn't enough. It's a lot deeper than that.
Totally. It's almost like it just opens the door, but there's still a lot more to be done.
It's almost like that is the first thing.
Yes.
You have that confirmation that they're there. So I've burnt myself. But you can't, having that confirmation, but you know, this is another controversial thing, but having a medium as like a intermediary doesn't really heal. I think you only get real healing if you can do the connection with your loved one. And Raise is all about that, actually, is building that real connection so that you can work through with them. You know, mediums, and I include myself in that as well. We're like the middleman, and to get a real healing and what have you, it really has to be direct, which Claire and her dad actually had by the end of the session. So they then go away and work on that themselves. But I know we've gone really over time, so
no, that's right. Oh no, I can just talk about this all day. But just one last thing, if you could recommend for people who are watching this, if they wanted to try to sort of establish some sort of a communication, how what would you say is the best way to do
without a doubt, writing letters. So a lot of the work, you know, with Christian, a lot of it has been through writing letters. And I know we have, you know, we now have a connection, and I know it's him, and we write letters to each other, and that's how a lot of this information about his past came out. But if you can, like, if you're grieving, if you can write a letter to your loved one and just get it all out, get all the emotion out, get all the fear out, get all the love out, get all the anger out, get all the emotions. It's like getting everything out onto paper, and then it kind of initiates, you know, and then send it. I don't know how you do it, whether you just metaphorically send it to them and ask for a reply, ask for their help, ask for a reply. And that might just trigger some signs. It might trigger some songs to be suddenly on the radio, or it might be, you know, and then you might actually be able to sit down and write their letter back to you. Wow. Try it. It sounds kooky and ridiculous, but actually just try it. And just keep, actually, somebody came to me, and their brother in spirit suggested that they write for 19 days, like for 19 days. And he said, look, to the sister, he said, write a journal, write anything you want, whatever it is, just write for 19 days without a break, and you'll get into the habit of writing.
Okay.
And she now writes all the time and has she's actually she comes back to me, she's building a relationship with her brother in spirit again, and clearing all their relationship up. And it's really it's a powerful thing, the written word. It's just getting it all out onto paper, just get all these feelings out and emotions out, and you'll find all sorts of stuff coming out, but it's kind of like a safe thing to do.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and also following the signs, like you said, like hearing a song, or that's happened to me so many times where I will either smell something that my mom used to use, or there's a song on the radio that will come up that we used to listen to together, and it's kind of small things like that, and you're just like, wow, yeah, it's really nice.
And it's those little things that you might just disregard as that was just coincidence.
Yeah,
I don't believe in coincidences anymore. It's like synchronicities instead. These are meant to happen, these are signs, these are for you, they're gifts for you. Totally.
Yeah. And is there anything that Christian wants to say just to finish off?
No, he's just saying he's really enjoyed it, even though he hasn't, my big sister with a big mouth, but he's enjoying being talked about as well. Spirit, people in spirit, they enjoy being talked about. They like being remembered, and they like to feel, they like to know that they're still part of people's lives. And actually it's the Day of the Dead coming up soon, All Souls and what have you, and this is now a perfect time for remembering the line, the barrier between both worlds is very thin at the moment, and this is now the time to, it's a really good time to be having this conversation. So talk about your loved ones, involve them, and all this Christmas coming up and all that, difficult Christmas time, but in fact, if you look on the web, part of my films with Christian, there was actually we did one just before Christmas last year, and there's a whole film about Christmas and how they're there. And I got somebody from Spirit came as a sort of spokesperson and spoke on behalf of everybody, and sort of mentioned about, just told them about Christmas and how we shouldn't be mourning them, and they're right there, and all these little things that they can make happen over Christmas, so they're there. But so if you go to hannahvelten.online, and the Loss is an Illusion tab, and all the films are there, so that I've been talking about. So I'm very transparent. It's always got to be transparent. So
yes, totally. Wow. Well, Hannah, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we definitely have to continue this at some point again, because it's just such a big topic. But all the best of luck with your work, and it's really, really incredible. So people can go and join you on your Facebook page as well, Hannah Velten.
The Facebook page is actually Death Queen Han, H-A-N at the end. And we have Rays, but if you go to the website as well, there's all everything that I do and all the different connections, and there's a book you can buy, and there's all different levels of stuff that
everything for everyone, basically.
Something for everybody.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Good night, and we'll catch up again soon.
All right, lots of love. Thank you.
Bye.
What I learned to understand as I grew is that there are two separate dimensions. There is the dimension of the physical world, which crosses over into the unseen world. That is unseen by the naked eye.
The essential question is, where does consciousness come from? Does it come from the brain, or does it come from another alternative source?
I saw things sitting at the bedside that was so astonishing that it made me think there is more to this than meets the eye.
I was a natural psychic as a child. My father, when he passed away, instead of him being a man of 84, he looked like a man of 24.
There's always one family member that seems to be the spokesperson between the dead and the living. And I was born to have that relationship.
The spiritualist tradition opened my eyes to recognize that there were things that went on in the afterlife that I would not have possibly believed. Because when you die and you pass out of the physical body, you're moving into the astral dimension. So instead of having a brain, you have a variety of levels of consciousness.
The newly dead are 7 times more sensitive to hearing and seeing.
There would have been a family community that still exists in spirit. They still are acknowledging that maybe if you turn to them, you might be able to get the help that you need.
So this is the ancestral continuum, which goes back 7 generations.
Sometimes the dead also need to tell their stories.
They will suddenly get this moment of, oh, so that's what it's all about.
So these studies suggest, without doubt, and that consciousness can exist beyond the brain.
These phenomena exist as facts of nature, and science is going to have to accommodate.
The birth of a child, well supported. Marriage, well supported. Death, we don't talk about that, do we? And then you are so ill prepared when it happens, what is going to happen to you next?
Hi, I'm Desi Kadra and I'm the director of Beyond the Veil. Beyond the Veil is a feature documentary that explores what happens in life after death. For over a century, the Western materialist view that there is nothing outside of this physical reality and that our consciousness is produced only by the brain and that there's nothing past this physical veil has produced a worldwide epidemic from the fear of dying. Beyond the Veil aims to challenge this perspective and to offer a new perspective told by those who are able to communicate with the non-physical reality and with the spirit world. Beyond the Veil is unique in that it provides a glimpse into the afterlife, told from the very people who were born with the gift of being able to communicate with spirits of our deceased loved ones. Beyond the Veil aims to highlight some of the important work that is being done by psychics and mediums all over the world who are helping people who are grieving over their loved ones to once again reconnect with their loved ones who have passed away. For far too long, the psychic phenomenon has been dismissed and ridiculed by mainstream science, and it's time to put the story straight. Like many people today, I've experienced first-hand grief after losing a loved one 5 years ago. The reality is that the majority of us never truly recover from grief. We just learn to live with it. We just learn to cope with it. And for me, it wasn't really until I began to explore the spiritual side of reality and to realize that there is so much more outside of this physical perspective that my true healing began. My vision for Beyond the Veil is to spread this message all over the world and reach as many people who are also going through grief, who are also going through the suffering of losing a loved one, as well as those who are preparing to die and who are absolutely paralyzed by the fear of death that we have instilled for the last century with the idea that there's nothing past death. Beyond the Veil has been in the workings for the last 2 years and has been completely self-funded up until now. But in order to see it to completion, I will need your help. This is where you come in and you help us to spread this message all over the world by sharing it with your friends, by liking the page, and by most importantly donating and purchasing one of the amazing rewards that will help you become part of this experience. For the next month, I will be sharing some incredible information that's come out as a result of the research of this documentary and that you can also be a part of. So please join the page, follow us, and share with everyone that you know to help us spread this message and most importantly, help us to see it come into fruition. Thank you so much.